All right. On this side, this is the driver's side of the vehicle. Again, this is a 60 series Detroit diesel engine. It's on a 2009 Freightliner Century class. Now we're going to go ahead and go with our reservoirs. This is our radiator right here. This is our radiator reservoir. This is our power steering reservoir. And this is our windshield wiper reservoir. You want to make sure all your reservoirs are at the proper level. Here you have the proper levels right here on your radiator. This is your proper level on your power steering. And on your windshield wiper, this is the proper level up here. All right, but you can still see it. You want to make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken in any way. All hoses coming to and from are not leaking, or abrasions, bumps, or cuts, or dry rotting. Make sure the clamps are present and tight. All nuts and bolts on everything, make sure they're all present and tight. And you want to make sure your tops on everything are hand tight, properly mounted and secured. Now this is your fuel filter. You want to make sure your fuel filter is not cracked, bent, or broken. All hoses coming to and from, no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, or dry rotting. Make sure they're nice and tight on your fuel lines right here. Okay. Make sure it's properly mounted, secured. Make sure nothing is cracked, bent, or broken. Now we're gonna go with our oil. This is our oil filler. This is our oil dipstick. You take this out. You want to wipe it off with a cloth or a napkin of your choice. Put it back in and make sure it's between the add and the full line. That's how you check it. Make sure it's properly mounted, secured. Make sure it's not leaking down on the dipstick. Make sure your dipstick and your oil filler is properly mounted, secured. All nuts and bolts are present to the side of the block of the engine. All right. Now we're gonna go with our radiator. This is our radiator. We want to make sure all hoses coming to and from are not leaking. Make sure there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, or dry rotting. Everything is properly mounted and secured. This is our fan shroud or fan housing, and these are our fan blades. You want to make sure it's all properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, or dry rotting again on your radiator hoses, and make sure there's no damage to your fan housing and your fan blades. Our fan, it is belt driven, no more than 3/4 inches of plate. On our belt, it cannot have no abrasions, bumps, cuts, or dry rotting. Make sure it's all properly mounted and secured. All right. Here we have our power steering pump. Make sure our power steering pump is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. Nothing is cracked, bent, or broken. This is our air compressor. We make sure our air compressor is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. All the hoses coming to and from are not leaking. No abrasions, bumps, or cuts, or dry rotting. Your air compressor and your power steering pump is gear driven right here, about this gearbox right here. All right, it is gear driven. Now we're gonna go ahead and go with our frame. Our frame is free of any illegal welds. It's properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken in any way. This is our shock. We wanna make sure our shock on the upper and lower mount, make sure all nuts and bolts are present and tight. Make sure our shock is free of any illegal welds. Make sure it's not leaking. All right, this right here is our gearbox, our power steering gearbox. Our power steering gearbox is make sure all nuts and bolts are present and tight, properly mounted, secured. All hoses coming to and from are not leaking. No abrasions, bumps, or cuts, or dry rotting on our hoses. This is our in our power steering gearbox. It is gear driven. All right, we have our steering shaft. Make sure our steering shaft have no more than 10 degrees of plate. Also, you want to make sure our U joints. Make sure all nuts and bolts are present and tight on the upper and the lower. All right, make sure it's properly mounted, secure. Make sure your U-joints are properly greased. Then we're gonna go to our 3-piece steering linkage. Right here we have our pitman arm. We have our drag link and our control arm right here. Make sure they all present and tight. They're locked in with calcium nuts with Carter keys right here. Make sure all nuts and bolts are present and tight. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken in any way. Here's your other one. Now right here, this is our tie rod. This long bar right here, this is our tie rod. It's locked in with the lower control arm. It's locked in with a calcium nut and Carter key as well. Make sure all nuts and bolts are present and tight, not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure all your metal is free of any illegal welds. Here we have our steering. This is our steering axle right here. It goes from one tire to the next of the tire, or the one drum to the next of the drum. This is our axle. Make sure it's free of any illegal welds. All nuts and bolts are present and tight, not cracked, bent, or broken. Here we have our leaf spring. Our leaf spring is bolted down to our steering axle with these bolts. We got to make sure our bolts are nice and tight. Make sure they're present and tight, not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure everything is free of any illegal welds. All right. On your leaf spring, you have your leaf spring hanger. and you have your leaf spring mount. You want to make sure all nuts and bolts are present and tight, not cracked, bent, or broken in any way. Make sure you're on your leaf spring hanger, you got a rubber bushing. Make sure there's no abrasion, bumps, or cuts to dry rod, and make sure it's all properly mounted secured. Now we're going to go ahead and go with our brake chamber. This is our single brake chamber. Our single brake chamber has an air line right here. This is our air line, and the small line is an ABS line. You want to make sure there's no abrasion, bumps, or cuts to dry rod it. Make sure it's not leaking. Make sure everything is properly mounted secured to your brake chamber. This is a single brake chamber. It's connected to your S-cam bracket. Make sure your S-cam bracket is free of any illegal welds, not cracked, bent, or broken. This right here is your slack adjuster with your push rod. Okay, this is your push rod. It goes inside the brake chamber. And this is your slack adjuster right here. It's locked in with a clevis pin and a Carter key. With the brakes released, you should not have no more than 1 inch of play. All right, with the brakes released. Then you're gonna come in the inside. This is your drum right here. You wanna check your drum, make sure your drum is free of any illegal welds, make sure it's properly mounted secured. Make sure it should not have no more than 1 inch of heat stretch. Make sure it's free of debris, of liquids and fluids. This right here is your brake pad or your brake shoes. You wanna make sure your brake shoes is free of any illegal welds, not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure it's properly mounted secured. Make sure your brake pads has at least 1/4 inch or 1/4 inch of thickness. Anything less than that, you have to change them out. After that, you're gonna check the rim. You wanna check the inside of the rim as well as the outside of your rim. Make sure it's free of any illegal welds. Make sure it's properly mounted secured to the drum. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. You wanna check the inside of your tire as well as the outside of your tire. The inside tire, you wanna make sure it's properly seated and beaded to the rim. Inside and on the outside. Make sure it's properly mounted secured. On the inside of your tire, the top of your tire, on the side of your tire, make sure there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, or dry rot. Make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not torn in any way. Make sure the top of your tire has even wear all the way around. Make sure no nails or anything in there. No less than 430 seconds on your tire depth. Make sure they virgin radials on both sides and matching sets. Make sure they at least have 100 PSI or to the factory specs of the tire. Make sure it's properly mounted secured. Now you want to go with your lug nuts. You want to make sure all your lug nuts are present and tight. Make sure they all present and tight. Okay, these are lug nuts. All right, make sure there's no shiny metal or rust that indicates looseness. All right, this is your hub seal. Right here's your hub seal. It's rubber, so you want to make sure there's no abrasion, bumps, or cuts, or dry rotted. Make sure it's properly mounted secured. These are your bolts. Your nuts and bolts to your hub seal. Make sure they all present and tight, not cracked, bent, or broken in any way. Then you want to check your valve stem. When you make sure your valve stem is not cracked, bent, or broken, make sure it's not damaged, make sure it's nice and tight, make sure the cap is on there. All right, that'll complete the outside inspection on A.